The United States has confirmed its military withdrawal from Afghanistan is now more than 90% complete. The Taliban, meanwhile, says it's captured another 10 districts from the Afghan government. More than a dozen Nigerian schools considered vulnerable to attack have been closed following the kidnap of 140 students. The latest abductions were in Kaduna State, a region known for kidnappings for ransom. The UK Health Secretary Sajid Javid has announced that people who've had both doses of COVID vaccine in England will no longer have to self-isolate if they come into contact with a positive case. And 32 people are now confirmed dead following the Miami building collapse 12 days ago. 113 remain unaccounted for. The arrival of Tropical Storm Elsa is threatening to hamper search and rescue efforts.
Hong Kong police arrest 9 people suspected of planning bomb attacks across the city. 6 of the group are school-age young people. In Afghanistan, government forces say they are preparing to strike back against Taliban rebels in Takhar province. In Ivory Coast, the government sends health workers around Abidjan in an effort to vaccinate 1 million people in the city over the next 10 days. And in Japan, emergency workers continue rescue efforts after a landslide Saturday killed 4 people southwest of Tokyo. 24 people are missing.
We begin here in Japan, where the search for survivors continues in Shizuoka Prefecture west of Tokyo following Saturday's devastating mudslides. 7 people have been confirmed dead and more than 20 are unaccounted for. Massive volumes of mud and debris are hampering the rescue operations. A torrent of mud damaged more than 120 buildings. About a third of them were washed away. The sediment has accumulated to head height, and workers are digging by hand to prevent injuring anyone who's been buried. Firefighters are checking inside each damaged house, looking for survivors.
The very steep slopes are making our work difficult.
Aerial photos released by the government show the entire trace of the mudslides stretching for about 2 kilometers to the coast. It's up to about 160 meters wide. On Tuesday, rescuers confirmed 3 more people had died, bringing the total to 7. They're trying to determine if more than 20 others were also caught up in the disaster. With the region still in the midst of the rainy season, weather officials are warning that even a small amount of rain could cause more landslides. Next, to the coronavirus situation here in Tokyo, where officials are struggling with a recent spike in new infections. Tokyo confirmed 593 new cases on Tuesday. That's an increase of 117 from last Tuesday. It's the 17th straight day of week-on-week increases. Focused anti-COVID measures under a quasi-state of emergency remain in Tokyo and 9 other prefectures. They're scheduled to continue through this Sunday, along with a state of emergency in the southern prefecture of Okinawa. Prime Minister Suga Yoshihide met with cabinet ministers to discuss the situation. Health Minister Tamura Norihisa said that he feels a great sense of crisis as infections are rebounding in Tokyo.
We need to discuss how to reduce the number of people out and about, particularly at night, as a high-risk behavior of spreading infection.
The recent spike in Tokyo is hitting the torch relay, with the Olympic flame due to set off on a 15-day trip through the capital from Friday. Officials decided to keep the event off public roads, except on some remote islands. Meanwhile, athletes from abroad are now gathering in Japan. Members of the French men's volleyball team landed in Okinawa for a pre-tournament training camp. In line with anti-infection procedures, the entire French squad tested negative for the virus upon entering the country. Health authorities across Japan confirmed more than 1,600 new cases on Tuesday. 22 people have died. Well, the games kick off in less than 3 weeks, but it's still not clear how many spectators, if any, will be allowed. Supercomputer calculations released Tuesday put the risk of coronavirus infection at the main Olympic Stadium close to zero under certain conditions. They assume there are 10 infected people among 10,000 spectators, and everyone is wearing a mask and maintaining social distance.
The result scientifically demonstrates that the spread of infection can be contained as far as the national stadium is concerned.
The calculation by Japan's Fugaku supercomputer also took into account the effect of wind conditions on the likelihood of transmitting the virus. A decision on whether to allow spectators, and if so, how many, could come later this week at a meeting of the 5 bodies responsible for the Games' organization and preparation. Despite the pandemic, Japan's Olympians have stuck with their tradition of coming together under the national flag ahead of every Games. At a ceremony on Tuesday in Tokyo, wrestler Susaki Yui received the Hinomaru as one of Team Japan's 2 flag bearers. The athletes who attended mostly did so online. Japan's squad has a record 582 members. Team captain and sprinter Yamagata Ryota pledged to give the Olympics everything he's got. Last month, the 29-year-old ran the 100 meters in 9.95 seconds, a new national record.
There may be questions about the significance of holding the Games amid the pandemic, but we've always valued the importance of sports. What we can do now is sincerely join the competition and give our best.
In Myanmar, local media report that dozens of civilians have been killed in fresh clashes with military troops. The fighting began on Friday in villages in the northern region of Sagaing. They say the locals used homemade firearms against more than 100 troops. More than 30 civilians died. The state-run newspaper reported on Sunday that armed terrorists ambushed security forces on patrol investigating crimes, killing 1 member and wounding 6. A witness told NHK that the military troops were using artillery, including missiles and mortars.
The civilians were hit while they were running. Those who could run fled, but those who could not were left to die. The military troops were searching for those who were wounded by the artillery and shot them dead on the spot.
The clashes have forced many people to flee their homes. The resident with whom we spoke says about 10,000 have fled to local forests and mountains. Indonesia logged a record number of daily cases on Tuesday. Health authorities confirmed more than 31,000 new infections with 728 deaths. The surge is linked to the spread of the highly infectious Delta variant first identified in India. Indonesia's medical systems are under severe strain. About 75% of the hospital beds for COVID patients are occupied nationwide. In the capital, Jakarta, the rate has topped 90%. The country also faces a critical shortage of oxygen for medical use. The Japanese embassy in Jakarta says 5 Japanese living there died from coronavirus during the 10 days until Monday. These include employees of Japanese companies and people who'd lived there for a long time. Across the country, more than 2.3 million cases have been confirmed, with over 61,000 deaths. Infection numbers also continue to surge in Thailand, with over 5,000 cases a day recorded since last week. The resort island of Phuket, which has started to accept tourists without quarantine, is on the alert after a local official was found to be infected. The Phuket Sandbox Initiative has, since July 1st, allowed fully vaccinated tourists to move freely around the island. But the government has revealed that the Chamber of Commerce chairman from a northeastern region who came to Phuket for a tourist welcoming ceremony was infected. Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha, who was also at the ceremony, has self-isolated for at least 14 days starting on Monday, as he had come into close contact with the official while taking a selfie photograph. Health authorities say they'll review the initiative if the number of infections grows. The country has been struggling to contain the Delta variant despite the government's tougher restrictions on restaurants and construction sites since last week. More than 5,400 daily cases and 57 deaths were reported on Tuesday. Public health officials continue to voice concerns about hospital bed shortages. Israel's health ministry has reported a decrease in the effectiveness of the Pfizer coronavirus vaccine in preventing COVID-19 infections and symptomatic illness. The vaccine was reported to have a 94.3% efficacy rate in May. Ministry officials said on Monday that a decline to 64% since June 6th coincided with the spread of the Delta variant. But the vaccine's effectiveness in preventing serious illness is estimated at 93%. In Israel, more than 80% of people aged 16 and older are fully vaccinated. The country often had single-digit daily new case figures until mid-June. But on June 25th, the government again mandated the use of masks indoors as cases started to increase. The government is tightening quarantine measures at airports while working to vaccinate people aged 12 to 15. Hong Kong police say they've arrested 9 people on suspicion of possessing explosives. Investigators believe the group was planning to plant bombs at courts, railways, and other public facilities. Police said on Tuesday that they'd arrested 5 men and 4 women between 15 and 39 years old on suspicion of violating the national security law for Hong Kong. The police say the suspects are members of a group demanding Hong Kong's independence from China. Officers say they found a powerful explosive known as TATP and model guns in a hotel room.
They were targeting public facilities. If they had succeeded, many citizens would have been hurt.
Hong Kong Chief Executive Carrie Lam said the incident shows there are threats against national security and social stability. The arrests come amid growing discontent over Beijing's tightening grip on Hong Kong and 2 years after massive anti-government protests began. Last week, a man stabbed a police officer, seriously injuring him. The man then stabbed himself and later died in a hospital. It's time now for a check on world weather. Tropical storm Elsa is projected to make landfall in Florida, posing the threats of wind damage and flooding. Our meteorologist Saika Mori has the latest.
Elsa has been battering the Caribbean islands with heavy rainfall and strong winds. Cuba saw about 200 millimeters of rainfall in just 12 hours. We have some video coming out of the country. Tropical storm Elsa has brought heavy rains and strong winds to the south-central coast of Cuba. Local media said more than 100,000 people in the country have been evacuated. Heavy rain will result in significant flash flooding and mudslides. 3 people have died because of the storm in the Caribbean islands. Now the system is starting to pull away from Cuba. The center will likely move over Florida by Wednesday morning local time. It looks like it's going to hit the Tampa region as well. There's a potential for tornadoes in Florida as well as nearly 250 millimeters of rainfall. After affecting Florida, the center will likely move along the east coast while weakening as we go into the weekend. Even Atlantic Canada could be affected by the storm as a low pressure system. Lytton, Canada saw record high temperatures last week. We saw 46 degrees on Sunday, and then 49.6 degrees became the national record for Canada. The area was hit by a deadly wildfire. Unfortunately, 90% of the village has burnt. Now, we'll continue to see dry and hot conditions in parts of British Columbia. There are nearly 200 wildfires occurring in the province. Unfortunately, dry conditions will likely prolong there. Temperatures in Calgary at 26 and Vancouver 22 with sunny weather, heating up to the 30-degree mark in Denver, and it's very hot, dangerously hot across the East Coast. The D.C. area could see 37, New York City at 33 with a chance for thunderstorms. Atami, which was hit by a deadly mudslide, will continue to see rainy weather and hot temperatures into the rest of the work week. A rainy season front is now affecting parts of South Korea and western Japan. That's it for me. Stay safe.